Hello, friends, and welcome to another installment of Go Tell It on the Mountain. This week, I get an opportunity to spend time with the Reverend George Harris, who's the pastor of First Church of Christ in Simsbury. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Reverend Darrell. It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I have to say, before we do have a conversation about the church, I had an opportunity to meet George. Was it 4 years, 3 years ago now? I feel like time is going so fast.
Yep.
We both did the Credo program through the pension boards, which was this week long of investment in our lives as a clergy person, invitation to health, wholeness, worship, fellowship. And who knew, George, that just a few years later,
Isn't that great?
we
Isn't that
would be
great?
in each other's lives in this way. So grateful for
I love it.
our relationship, for our connection. And I have to just give you a Thanksgiving because in the middle of the pandemic, where I hadn't really had a chance to interact or visit any of our churches or be in space with folks yet, George, I just want to say I appreciate you extending an invitation for me to come over, have a little cup of coffee with you, and then be in one of our churches. So I think you actually may have been one of the first churches in the Southern New England Conference that I had an opportunity to just physically be in as the conference minister. So thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah.
So, George, I'm going to start by asking you about your call journey to First Church of Christ. Can you share with us a little bit about how you were called to this place?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My background before coming to Simsbury was in much more urban settings. I got my start actually in Honolulu in homeless ministry. That was what drew me to the church, what drew me to ministry. When I became ordained, my first call was to South Church in New Britain, Connecticut, very downtown church, very urban setting, urban issues. These were the things that moved me and called me. And so when this opportunity at Simsbury first came up, Simsbury being, of course, a prosperous middle-class town, maybe 2 rings outside of Hartford, and I initially kind of thought, well, that just doesn't make sense for me. That just doesn't seem like a fit. But as God works in these things, I didn't close myself off to the possibility. I did submit my profile. I met with the search committee a couple times. And sure enough, one thing led to another. I made a very significant, meaningful connection with members of the search committee. What they were saying was that the church was looking for somebody with my background and experience and focus, and I felt God move in all that, and I have never regretted that. I've been here for 6 years now, and I've never regretted this call. It's as all good calls are. It's been just a really perfect fit for me.
And I'm grateful that you said that. I think sometimes we can put our own call in a box. We can sort of say, these are the only places that will work for me. As you know, brother, I found myself in Nebraska. I found myself in all kinds of places that I would have been like, this urban guy from Chicago would never have found myself in. And in those places, right, there's this beauty of ministry that I think in some respects unveils even a deeper sense of the church. And so I'm curious for you, now that you have been serving as the pastor, what are some things you're really excited about? What are some things that have happened in the life of the church that really have been that kind of, okay, God, this is where I know I'm supposed to be?
So a couple of things come to mind. First, in response to what you said about your call in Nebraska, when I was struggling with whether this was my call or not here in Simsbury, a couple of my clergy colleagues of color were very clear with me. They said, George, the urban settings, they don't need you. They have leadership in those settings. They said, in Simsbury, those are your people. Those are your people, by which they meant, people that share a background with me, for whom my perspective can be meaningful and could potentially be transformative and life-changing, both for some of the church members, but also for the church. Along those lines, from the time I first arrived here at First Church, we got active in the Greater Hartford Interfaith Action Alliance, GIA. It wasn't so named at the beginning, but it was the faith-based community organizing initiative in Hartford. And that began with several years of just relationship building among clergy, and has since grown and become invested with lots of participation from our membership, a significant commitment on behalf of our church. And I think it is maybe not yet transformed the nature and the vision of the church here, but it's getting there. We recently trained a racial justice activation team, a group of 8 of our members who are really committed to a vision of anti-racism here at the church, and they are at work, working within the congregation to make that vision a reality. So that in particular has been very, very exciting for us, and I do believe is going to result in some lasting transformation in the culture and the vision of our church here.
One of the things, George, that I'm not even sure that you're aware, one of the things the conference did this year was to strengthen and deepen our partnership with GIA, to invest $75,000 in our ministry over the next 3 years in 3 $25,000 installments, really because of your church and so many of our other churches in Connecticut that are critically engaged with the mission of GIA. And how not only the legislative action, but so many of the other things that they do to advance what really a missional imperative for us, living the love and justice of Jesus, but because of the congregational imperative with GIA that really encouraged the conference to kind of make this investment. So we're coming alongside all of the ways in which our church is.
That's great. No, that's great. I'm a huge. I mean, GIA is the real deal in my mind. They walk the walk, including the anti-racism work. They've been very clear from the very beginning, as an organization, as an initiative, that anti-racism has to be woven into the very fabric of that work. And so that has been put forward throughout this process. And so it's I'm grateful for the conference. That's really exciting.
The other thing that, of course, I want you to talk about, but you don't have to, is when I came to visit your church, there were certain places that you were saying, well, this is what it looks like now, but it'll be completely changed. And this is going to be remorphed, and all of these amazing things that were going to be happening. So here we are in 2022. How's that going? How is it?
Well, thank you for asking. I'm happy to talk about that. Of course, shame on me if I'd led with that, though, right? If I'd led with our building and not with our mission, then shame on me. So I had to keep that in the right order. But yes, you're right. We completed a $3.7 million capital campaign, raising those funds from our membership, and it was all to really make just significant renovations to our building and grounds. We hadn't had a capital campaign or a building project in maybe 20 years or more, and so things were just showing their age. And so we didn't build an addition or anything like that, but we did almost every single room and every single part of the church got touched in some way, and from the parking lot all the way to our sanctuary. And we came in on budget and on time, and the church looks magnificent. And I think I won't get into this too much. We recently had some water damage, unfortunately, in the sanctuary that has us back in construction mode for a little bit. But that has not dampened, pun intended, has not dampened the spirits here. We're very, very excited that we've got this extraordinary facility here, and that will enable our mission that much more.
I really appreciate you sharing that, George. I think people have wondered, have our churches really been able to move forward in any way in the middle of this pandemic? And I think from you to a number of our churches in all 3 states, they had started a process pre-pandemic, and just to see a lot of those projects now coming into fruition is just a really good sign of the healthiness of church, that, even in the midst of struggle, there has been these ways in which the church has been stretching itself. So thank you.
So I'll just say one thing in response to that. Thank you for saying that. We 2 Sundays ago I think it was 13 new members joined First Church, and the vast majority of those came to the church during the pandemic. Came to us via either virtual worship or outdoor worship, which we were doing for a time. But they found the church in the midst of the pandemic and were able to build and grow their relationship during the pandemic to the point where they felt inspired to commit themselves to membership. So it's great. I know we're not alone in that. I know other churches have had that experience as well. So it's very exciting.
I like the moniker I often use with the Southern New England Conference is "Come grow with us," and I know. I mean, it's not a membership-based statement. It's really more about missionally come and grow with us. But adding members is not a bad thing either. I think
right, because that represents energy, that represents call for them. It's affirming of the mission and the vision of the church, because it's people saying we see something here that we want to commit ourselves to. So it's good all the way around.
Now, George, most of the time when I'm making these connections and Go Tell It on Mountain is because I'm going to be with your congregation. And so when I'm preaching with your congregation and sharing and with you all, how might other people join us? I'm imagining they can come in person, but are there other ways that people might be able to connect with your ministry?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So we worship at 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings, both in person and virtually. And so certainly anyone is welcome to come in person. We are still wearing masks in worship, but are otherwise, we're together, and it's very meaningful. We are streaming live, both on Facebook, our Facebook page, which is First Church. I think it's First Church of Christ in Simsbury is our Facebook page name, and also on from our website. You can also access that worship from our website, which is fccsimsbury.org. So we have a significant following online, and more people coming back to worship in person as well.
Great. Well, George, thank you so much for your time. And friends, if you have an opportunity to either join us virtually or in person, the doors of the church are truly open. Anyway, bless you, George, and thank you so much.
Thank you.